Hey there, welcome to episode 178 of the Let's Innovate for Vegas audio program. I am your host, Dan Hugo, Managing Director of the Innovate for Vegas Foundation here in Greater Vegas. We're recording this at 8:58 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time, once again here in Greater Vegas, on Tuesday, July 14th, 2026. We do normally publish new episodes of this audio program on Tuesdays, usually in the morning. Looks like we got both of those boxes checked. Today's title and topic, connections. It's something I've talked about here and there through various episodes. It will start off with LinkedIn, fair warning. We won't go too far down that path. Well, no, maybe a little bit far. Well, farther than anyone should. But there are some other things that we'll talk about. And I will mention right now up front that two of our initiatives are aimed very specifically at connecting people, sharing information in ways that are more modern, but also take advantage of existing technologies that have existed over the decades and so on. So we are proposed. We are not about to propose. We have proposed a solution to this, or at least one solution, one new thing to add to the mix, rather than relying on what we've all come to rely on, which is third-party platforms algorithmically telling us what we would like to be interested in. So, hey, if you're not aware of what the Innovate for Vegas Foundation is, or maybe you're new to this Let's Innovate for Vegas audio program, you're probably curious, what's going on? Well, hang on one second. All right, had to get some water there. I've noticed that when I pause recording for a moment to get a drink of water or something, you will often leave a little artifact, like a change in ambient noise or something. So I'm going to be more clear now and then if I'm pausing. If you hear it sounds like a cut, it's not editing, it's just that I have paused. I guess that's a form of editing. Anyway, connections. Innovate for Vegas Foundation. We are a nonprofit. We're a 501c3 public charity. We're a Nevada nonprofit corporation. We have recently entered our 5th year, July 1st, 2 weeks ago today. 5th year of being a public charity. 5th fiscal year, I should say. Although we were founded, we formed our Nevada Nonprofit Corporation in June of 2022, so pretty close. Our purpose statement, in case you're curious, is to enable and encourage ideation, innovation, and implementation to make our communities better. Nothing about code or tech, although those are certainly under the innovation umbrella. We used to be called Code for Vegas, as part of Code for America. This was over a decade ago now. If you're familiar with the open data platform that still exists today in the city of Las Vegas, maintained on ArcGIS, but if you look for open data Las Vegas, you'll find it. There are a few a few portals, a few hosted data set collections, catalogs, mostly on ArcGIS website. That's kind of their business now, is hosting municipal open data. Code for Vegas was involved with City of Las Vegas and Code for America way back when, over a decade ago, to build that platform, or what has become the current incarnation. We recently rebooted. We rebooted as Code for Vegas and the foundation as an independent nonprofit public charity, rather than rejoining Code for America. Code for America ended the Brigade program. So Code for Vegas was one of the earlier Brigade entities, cohorts. So the Brigade program went away, and now the world is once again full of independent civic innovation cohorts doing their thing in various localities. So here in Vegas, Innovate for Vegas. We used to have a counterpart in Reno called Hack for Reno. It too was part of Code for America. Hack for Reno is no more as far as I'm aware. So the time is really upon us to reinvigorate the notion that people who live in a place can contribute to its well-being and can even make it a little bit better. And so that's the sort of thing we're looking at. It's not the only thing. We have actual initiatives to pursue to those ends, but there is some other stuff like connecting people. See what I'm doing here? Connecting people to their communities and enabling them to collaborate on civic innovation ideas. And that ultimately elevates the communities kind of on its own by having people, more connected with their surroundings, the place where they live, the place where they work, the people in those places. And then, of course, to connect to the city governments, county governments, agencies, companies, press outlets, and so on. Awareness could be an actual thing rather than relying on various social media platforms and ignoring outreach emails and direct messages on the awful platform known as LinkedIn. So we've come all the way around. Here we are, Innovate for Vegas. The Let's Innovate for Vegas audio program is about some of those things. It's basically, we started with an episode 0, so we have just over 178 episodes after today, going into the details of various aspects of our initiatives, our methodologies, our outreach. I'm going to get some water without pausing. Big plans. I've mentioned the upcoming City Camp, the first City Camp to take place in Las Vegas. City Camp is a project that was started several years ago by the original founder of Code for America. It is, I believe, in 2025. It kind of made a comeback after a couple of years of a break. So 2025, World City Camp Day on the third Saturday in September. 2026, they're doing the same thing. So we are having our City Camp here in Las Vegas on the third Saturday in September, September 19th, 2026. It is an event designed to, it's one day. It's an event designed to connect people in city government, county government, state government even, different agencies, journalists, teachers, educators, the normal people of Vegas doing their own thing, to take a day to connect to all those other people, to kind of interconnect and learn a little bit more about some challenges, and then learn a little bit more about some of the ideas that normal everyday people might bring to the table for discussion. That's a great lead in for our eventual Smarter Smart City Challenge, which will commence in January. So as I will get to at the end of this program, we're kind of taking a dual approach, 2 lanes of the same path towards better communities, elevating our surroundings in a variety of ways. One of the nice things about innovation, rather than being Code for Vegas, Innovate for Vegas, innovation takes many forms. There is no hard and fast rule. Oh, innovation, you're going to have to be using Android or iPhone, right? That doesn't exist. Innovation takes many forms. It can be done by anyone, and it can tackle just about anything. So innovation is a much bigger notion than merely coding. And I say this as a software engineer with 30 years behind me of doing this. So there's more to it than building an app or having your favorite AI tool do it for you now. So on that note, hopefully wherever you found this audio program, you're able to locate the episode description, which contains the show notes, including a brief summary. Actually, it's a little bit longer than normal. I'll read to you what it says. And then the links are just the usual to thinking about a name change instead of the word activity, not a name change, but cohort, maybe. Anyway, we'll get to that in a second. Hang on one second. I got a little cough coming here. All right. I'm sorry. At least my voice is doing a little bit better, but the weather changes and whatnot here in Vegas. I think today or tomorrow. Anyway, it's supposed to be a little bit cooler today, I think, and I believe a little bit more humid. Maybe the monsoons are upon us. I grew up in Phoenix myself, so monsoons are not anything by any means, and I've been here for 13 years, so there you go. The summary of today's episodes reads as thus. A few years ago, we had decided that proactive recruitment of civic volunteers didn't really make much sense, that the drive to participate really needs to come from within. However, if that drive is present, our org, should I type that out? I'll type organization. Our organization needs to be discoverable. And in Vegas, this is tricky business. It's business we are already pursuing, of course, but we can always do better. So connections, and now you have a flavor for what today's topic is. We do have 2 websites, 2 homepages leading to the same place. The Innovate for Vegas domain names are spelled Innovate, F-O-R Vegas, no space, innovateforvegas.org is our original website. Technically, our original website was codeforvegas.org, which we still have that domain, by the way. The innovateforvegas.org website is about our cohort. It's about our initiatives. It's about our participants, which we could always use more of. Innovateforvegas.org is where normal people can work on community elevating efforts, initiatives, and make sure that they are recognized for their contributions. We're pretty big on that. So innovateforvegas.org is our cohort of volunteers, civic volunteers who want to, and who do, hopefully, participate in our community elevating initiatives by contributing their time, effort, and expertise. There you go. The innovateforvegas.foundation website, same spelling, .foundation, is the business side. Remember, we're a Nevada nonprofit corporation. We have bylaws. We have a board of directors. We file taxes, which we have to do soon. Very easy to do, and we don't really get much in the way of donations. So why have two websites? Well, the Innovate for Vegas Foundation is facilitating City Camp. That's true either way. We are one IRS determined 501c3 public charity entity. We're one single Nevada nonprofit corporation. However, we do have a website, for example, Smart City Vegas, that is about, we have to update now with our move away from LinkedIn. We'll get to that in a second. We do need to make it clear to people that the Smart City Vegas initiative, collection of programs, including City Camp and Smart City Challenge, are part of Innovate for Vegas Foundation, just as the innovateforvegas.org website describes the cohort that is also part of Innovate for Vegas Foundation, elevating communities, making things better, conducting civic innovation activities and pursuits, and so on. Do you have to join the Innovate for Vegas Foundation to be a part of City Camp or Smart City Challenge? No. Do you have to join the Innovate for Vegas cohort to be a part of our initiatives? Technically, no, but ideally, yes. Joining is not a membership organization. It's merely an administrative addition of you and your GitHub username to a GitHub team. So it's not even that formal, but the notion is to maintain a cohort of people who are contributing time on a regular basis, contributing time, effort, and expertise to our ongoing initiatives. So if you are interested in challengers.vegas, that's an Innovate for Vegas Foundation initiative. So innovateforvegas.foundation would be the contact information and so on. So from a transparency and structural clarity standpoint, innovateforvegas.org is something that is a part of the innovateforvegas.foundation collection of initiatives and engagements. From a business standpoint, from a legal standpoint, innovateforvegas.org and innovateforvegas.foundation are two entrances to the very same restaurant, the same kitchen, the same staff, if that analogy still works. So two websites, one organization, so we can be completely clear about our various activities. There are some other ones too. I've mentioned for.vegas. I've mentioned talks.vegas. Is there a couple other? Mastodon.vegas. When we get that going, that'll be a donation driver. You do not have to join innovateforvegas.org to be a part of the Mastodon.vegas social network, right? It's a activity pub platform, very popular, an alternative to X and Blue Sky. One might argue better, but it'll fit into some of our other plans. Anyway, that's the scoop on our sprawling organization with only three directors on our board of directors now. And we can always use more civic volunteers to participate, to join the cohort. Hang on. Sorry about that. Yeah, very dry for some reason. I thought it was going to be more humid, but anyway, no time for that. Today's episode may get a little long. We'll find out. So first, let's tackle practicality. People have said to me over the years, why don't you just go? Yeah. Why don't you just go to the college and find people there? Why don't you go to? Okay. In our early days, about 4 years ago, 2022, probably late after the summer, about 4 years ago, now and then we would get a suggestion that we need to go to high schools or over to UNLV and see if we could find people who might want to take part in our community elevation initiatives as civic volunteers. This flies in the face of what we are trying to accomplish. I know it sounds crazy, right? Now, this does not mean we can't let people know that what we're aiming for. We are doing this right now with the upcoming City Camp event, the very first City Camp Las Vegas 2026, where we are explicitly not reaching out to minors, even though youth participation is one of the more important aspects of what we are trying to accomplish on the longer arc. We need adults interacting with young people, teachers, to take a small amount of interest and engage their classrooms with the possibility of being a part of their communities by way of civic innovation. The beginning of the beginning, perhaps. So we're sort of recruiting, but we're really reaching out to get teachers to engage their students. Students know who their teachers are. I usually say educators and mentors, so people that the students already have a relationship with, rather than some organization they've never heard of reaching out to them via email. Right away, you're off to a bad start. Now, it's not that we can't communicate with minors who are in our cohort with the permission of their parents, of course. But it does mean we're not soliciting minors for anything. We're keeping community safety as a high priority. So we're not making it a habit to solicit anyone, really, when you get right down to it. But we're trying to reach out to people to say, hey, if you want to be a part of your community and take part in this City Camp event, and then later the Smarter Smart City Challenge, that'd be great. We're keeping our solicitation, so to speak. That sounds more creepy than it is. But we are reaching out to adults, and then hopefully adults will reach out to either students, or maybe we'll be in touch with parents. Obviously, if parents want to include their young offspring, they're more than welcome to. And it's a family affair, being a part of your community, correct? So we are not reaching out to minors because community safety is important. Hey, I predicted what I wrote. Interesting. Random contacts to young people are not a great idea. In general, though, as a volunteer organization, it simply does not make sense to spend, I wrote spent, let me fix that, to spend time looking for people who want to volunteer when we should be, and in fact, while we are pursuing the initiatives we have conceived thus far, to hoist a banner of sorts that will perhaps be noticed by people who are looking for a collection of ideas on which to spend their time, effort, and expertise. I once again wrote spent. That's so weird. So we are pursuing initiatives, and while we're doing that, we're hoping to be discovered. We're hoping that people will come across those rather than talking about what we're working on, people should discover what we're working on, and they'll look and say, oh, what's this Innovate for Vegas Foundation? What's innovateforvegas.org? Could I be a part of that? Do I want to, etc.? As an all-volunteer organization, it's very tricky to say, let's allocate some time to wander around and try to convince other people to be volunteers based on a pitch, right? We actually used to do that at the, I have a little bit of water left, at the Tech Alley event in our first year. We had the rally at Tech Alley. We'd have a room full of people, and then they figured that was participation. Like, no, we're telling you about what we're working on. And they're like, yeah, good for you. So we need to impress upon people the possibilities of actually participating proactively in community elevation activities through civic innovation by volunteering some of their time. And I've already talked about this in a previous episode, the labs concept, where we turn some of our efforts into possibly, no guarantees, but we turn a viable civic volunteer effort into a ongoing revenue generating concern, and the people that actually work on it would be a part of that if they so chose. And so anyway, participation is key, not listening to a presentation or a discussion or even participating in the conversation, but then saying, okay, that's enough for me. That doesn't get us very far. So all of that time was spent basically entertaining people with optimistic tales, and then they left saying, well, yeah, good luck. So not as good a use of time as it could have been. So we've learned a couple things. The first lesson we have learned enough. LinkedIn. You've already heard that wretched name more times than we care to recall mentioning over many episodes of this audio program. So let's lay down the lessons learned so we can move on healthily from this silliness. Learning is rarely a waste of time, though we make an exception with LinkedIn. Ugh. Now, I'll say personally, I signed up for LinkedIn in August of 2003. So I was about to say 23. It's been 23 years next month, about a month from now, in fact. 23 years on that platform. It used to be good. It has evolved into something not as useful, much more noisier. Excuse me. And allegedly, LinkedIn is one of the most AI-generated content websites in the social media universe. Are you even interacting with people anymore? It started out as a live business card. In the Silicon Valley days, I was in Silicon Valley from 1993 to 2001, and then 2005 to 2013 when I moved to Vegas after a house fire. No, I didn't just randomly decide to move. Although, I had been to Vegas. It seemed like an interesting place. The downtown project was just commencing for real. I mean, it was more visible by that time. So the idea behind LinkedIn was useful. I will argue that when Microsoft acquired LinkedIn at some point, that may have been a turn for less useful, more commercialized, more of a recruiting and job, like a platform for headhunters and recruiters and so on. They still do offer, discovering former coworkers and reconnecting with them is still a thing. It's sort of like classmates.com for workplaces. And after my first tour of duty in Silicon Valley, I certainly had a lot of connections from, remember we used to work at Apple, remember we used to work at UMax, etc. So there was a lot of utility in connecting with people. Now it is a platform so noisy that it is difficult to actually turn any connections into real communication. Unfortunately, we've been trying to use LinkedIn as a platform of outreach to inform people about the upcoming CityCamp event, and that has been largely, I'll say, completely ineffective. Kind of a waste of time, really. Oh, sorry, I had to pause there. I'm getting this I basically have to cough a little bit. It just feels like my mouth dries up, so I'll apologize for that amount of detail, perhaps. So people do not generally find our LinkedIn pages for our foundation, Innovate for Vegas Foundation. And more recently, the Smarter Smart City Challenge page, Smart City Vegas, to which we have even more recently added CityCamp. All right, so Smarter Smart City Challenge, I think I created that page in February or March 2026. And then CityCamp, we only just added, I want to say in April or May. So still pretty new, but the vast majority of people following those pages, both of them, were invited to do so. And it is ridiculous how many people were invited to follow these pages who have completely ignored those indications. Hey, would you like to follow our charity webpage? You're in Vegas. We're in Vegas. Not interested? Oh. Of course, the lack of interest is expressed through silence. Do I put a lot of weight on page followers? No. Even less than I would have, and it wasn't really a lot back then. It's a channel to engage people, but if they're not interested in following a page or now more recently subscribing to a newsletter, that's fine. If they're completely not interested, they'll simply ignore all attempts at outreach, any attempts to contact them, and we get that too. So we have the full spectrum of apathy covered. So yeah, so many more people have been invited than are following our Innovate for Vegas page. It's a little disconcerting. It is not surprising in the least, though, or in the last. I don't know who types this stuff. It must be me when I'm sleeping, perhaps. But it is ridiculous. It's ridiculous how many people use the platform, but are probably already moved on to the new LinkedIn, which is really more about a megaphone. It's about self-promotion, promoting your consultancy or whatever, as a discovery platform for example, new startups in Vegas. How can I find them? Good luck. So I think the utility of LinkedIn has shifted significantly. It's certainly not helping us. So LinkedIn has evolved into an AI-driven echo chamber at the end of the day. And more recently, LinkedIn is ranking as one of, if not the largest host of AI-generated content for any social network platform. Yay. I think it was within the last week, and you're starting to see people who must post every day to satisfy the algorithm. You're starting to see people posting, oh, LinkedIn is 40% AI according to this article, or whatever it is. So people are making a point of pointing it out. Presumably it's humans writing those articles, but who can say? For our, the best part is that these are not they're not misspellings. So I get no help from spell checking. It needs to be grammar checking. If only there was an artificial intelligence tool that could do that for me. For our over 1,000 followers of the main page, we just went over 1,000 a couple weeks ago, we'll call it a month ago, sometime in May. I'm sorry, sometime in June. Maybe it was in May, but I think it was in June 2026. Went over 1,000 followers of the main page. We have over 230 followers of the Smart City Vegas page, which is pretty good considering how new it is. Once again, though, a lot of invitations. So it's not people discovering the page on their own, whatever machinations LinkedIn has to make that happen, and then deciding, oh, this looks interesting. So it's very difficult to get people to take an interest. So we essentially get zero engagement anyway. It doesn't really matter. The followers don't matter not the individuals, of course, they're people. But the followers don't matter. The follower count doesn't matter if we get zero engagement, zero responses, and most importantly, zero participation once people are able to discover our organization and, for examples, these upcoming outreach activities. So once there is something to participate in and to tell other people about, it doesn't matter. So having page followers is a net zero. It's the way it is. Sorry to sound so glib. Since this is true when we have placed as much value as we have thus far on LinkedIn, we need not ponder too deeply what will happen when we drastically reduce our use of LinkedIn. Yeah, that was me. I spelled all that correctly, but can't speak. It will not be a big change when we step back from LinkedIn and focus more on the rest of the internets. All right, I took a little break there to go get some more water. Hopefully, hydration will be the king of better speaking today. On to the second lesson. We learned this lesson early on. In our early days, those who would come by to explore what our organization was up to, this was at Rally at Tech Alley, which we actually used to call Finale at Tech Alley. That was where we were going to talk about some of the things we had accomplished since the last finale. Right? No, not a good idea. So Rally at Tech Alley. But we also had our monthly hackathon meetups where people could actually participate in the same room to collaborate. Nothing we were doing was geared towards 100% in person. So the ideal would be that people would work on things as they had time, and if they wanted to get together with their little, maybe a little team of 3 or 4 people, 2 or 3. No. We would have people arriving. Now, when they came to Rally Tech Alley, the answer to this question was yes, because Tech Alley provides free food as an enticement for people to show up for it goes from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m., 10 to 4. But they would come to the hackathon meetups and ask, is there free food? Unfortunately, a bad precedent has been set where to convince people to show up to do good things, they must be bribed with free victuals. I personally don't think that's a great idea, but it is what it is. No, we will not pay anyone to participate in community elevation activities. Sponsors might be willing to support such outreach, but we cannot possibly couch our engagement with potential sponsors as reason for people to show up. Hello, would you like to sponsor our event so people will show up? That's not that might work for a one-shot, but this is an ongoing community elevation effort that we're pursuing here. We'd like people to stick around. So in that case, maybe if we flip the script on that a little bit, hey, we have a group of 25, 50 volunteers, and we're working on civic volunteer projects such as these, and we have demonstrable progress. Would you like to sponsor these things? And you will be mentioned on websites and so on. That's a different pitch than, would you like to help us buy free food so people will show up? This being Vegas, it is absolutely true here. We must show these potential sponsors what we got. Show us what you got. We must do that first. There are some sponsors who would sponsor as part of their community outreach, who might sponsor meetup gatherings and so on. But these are weird times. It's hard to make that pitch. The snack question aside, what we really found a while ago was that people here in Vegas may be more true of the younger crowd. And yes, I was here for the point recently about inviting youth participation. Don't worry, I got it. People are not always looking for an environment where they can drive their ideas towards implementation. As a surprisingly self-aware young person said of their peers here in Greater Vegas back in 2022, they need to be told what to do, this person said. I was actually resistant to that, but truer words were not spoken by someone of such youthful insight in recent memory. Initially, this seemed rather glib, but it turns out that it's not far from the truth. It needs to change, ideally first by locating the small fraction of people who are not waiting for such direction, people who are inventive and innovative on their own, and the yet smaller still fraction of those people who are interested in civic innovation for the benefit of others. I always say entrepreneurs and innovators are not prone to waiting for someone else to fix something. So those are the people, the people who take proactive action. Proaction. Those are the people we would look for to say, would you like to be a part of community elevation efforts as a civic volunteer? And some fraction of those people, if they stay long enough to hear that entire sentence, they may be interested. Stranger things have happened. Hopefully this will change when we do connect with that tiny fraction of a fraction. But people do tend to disappear without saying anything in this business, the business of civic innovation and civic volunteering. No small part of the motivation for Agile for Volunteers, for example, which we've talked about in previous episodes, came from this tendency for people to disappear without warning and without finishing what they started or really completing anything. They just decide, not for me. I'm just not going to say anything. I'm going to leave everything as half done or worse. This has actually led to an adjustment of how we invite people to participate, where they really need to take some time to participate externally first. Like, make sure this is something you're actually interested in, rather than consuming the civic volunteer time, effort, and expertise of others while they decide if we are worth their time. This sounds harsh, but volunteering is a two-way street sometimes, often more than two ways. Most definitely in our organization, and respecting that in all directions is important. Most of our hackathon, meetup, weekend activities revolved around people who came for the first time, wanted to know what was going on, maybe showed up a second time, and then never to appear again. This ends up turning into a timeshare pitch. And honestly, that's not the reason to have the hackathon meetup. So we would spend some time on sort of an introduction / onboarding, but it was ultimately time wasted. So because it sounds maybe like an elitist approach, but this is an unpaid civic volunteer organization. So everybody's contributing their time. Time thrown away is difficult to justify. So it sounds cynical maybe, but, be interested. And we are interested in continuing the conversation. But we're not pitching. We're not trying to recruit people. And that's the point I was making early in the episode. It's just the math doesn't work. People must be interested. The third lesson, also early, and we continue to relearn. LinkedIn is bad. We know that, but there are a variety of reasons it has been bad and really appears to be getting worse over the last couple of years. 5 years ago, it was bad. 2 years ago, it got worse. Those are rough numbers, possibly related to AI. ChatGPT launched in November 30th of 2022. So by the time LinkedIn was deploying full throttle AI machinery, we'll call it 2 years. So 2 years ago, 4 years ago, ChatGPT, 2 years ago, LinkedIn really became noticeably stinkier. But there is also a culture shift, maybe a pivot towards social media from a professional social networking platform, more like Instagram, to be honest. Now that we're looking at that, really, it's unbelievable how many selfies are now on the LinkedIn platform. So there is something worse. We reached out to the city of Las Vegas back when we were forming to see about reconnecting from the original Code for Vegas days. I mentioned that Code for Vegas, Code for America, and the city of Las Vegas collaborated on the original open data platform. And you can still find what it has evolved into. They actually added staff to the section of the city government staff who maintains that stuff. So it's good to see that it's not going away anytime soon, hopefully. I mean, did they budget their time for that? I hope so. I guess we can look in the open budgets, open checkbook, one of those, on the city open data portal. So like our younger interlocutors, the city was very much about us showing them something first. They must be careful, apparently, so they said. And our interactions with the city of Las Vegas have never gone anywhere else, to be honest. Let me make that a proper plural match. Our interactions have never gone anywhere else. So as a global innovation hub that is the greater Vegas area, allegedly, this is not a healthy way to engage a local innovation foundation of any kind, whether it's ours or anybody trying to do anything interesting. Which leads me to believe, and this is my view, yours may differ, that CLV, City of Las Vegas, is not really capable of supporting civic innovation, preferring, if I can read my own writing here, preferring to lean heavily, maybe exclusively, toward capital and celebrity, capital or celebrity, maybe both, who knows. There are countless examples. We don't have to go into them today again. This made it easy to drop municipal partnerships, of course, and I've talked about this in a previous episode. We just don't participate in anything that would require the sign off or any connection, any binding connection to city government, county government, right? Because those are the sorts of things that can end abruptly. And we'd rather have civic volunteer time, effort, and expertise valued in something that could be ongoing regardless of a municipal partnership. So Code for America's model was much more focused on municipal partnerships. We are focused on, I usually call it bottom up, but actual people taking an interest that we drive the projects, we drive the initiatives, and that way they can be ongoing for as long as it makes sense for them to do so, rather than archiving it or, hey, I spent a lot of time on that. Yeah, well, we've archived it. We don't work on it anymore. That's not a great way to maintain connections with volunteers who are willing to contribute their time. And then, of course, the labs model says, hey, if we're working on something and it makes sense and it's actually doing what we hoped it would and people are getting real value out of it, maybe we should spin that off and turn it into a company so that people that spent their time could turn that into a revenue stream for themselves. So the greater Vegas area is built of silos. This is not new information. This has been true for a long time. Groups and organizations, and this includes educators working in any school program, so they're in a group of sorts. And just about anyone already doing their thing, so to speak, pretty much keep to themselves or within their groups. And it has become more and more clear that reaching across the gap between silos requires something other than an email message or even an in-person greeting. And forget about LinkedIn direct messages. That's not even worthwhile. This makes local collaboration nearly impossible unless people already have these connections established. So as you might imagine, establishing the connections is the tricky part. We aren't even going to touch on our local press outlets. We can assume they are stuck in their own mode and are not interested until we either build or demolish a resort. We sponsor a Formula One car, maybe, donate some Cybertrucks to the LVMPD, etc. So you really have to do some spectacular thing to get the local press to even recognize anything. And there's been a lot of outreach that has gone unresponded to in any way. So enough about that. We should always engage people. And that's why LinkedIn needs to go. The people are the important part in what we're doing. LinkedIn is a chaperone. It prevents people from communicating when you really think about it. We are planning and organizing City Camp and later the Smarter Smart City Challenge specifically to connect the local people of Greater Vegas with the notion of civic innovation. They don't have to join our organization. they can just realize that, oh, having an idea and then making it happen are possibilities that are not limited to people of great wealth and stature. This is not about joining our cohort. So to be very clear, or committing to anything other than yourself and your idea. Rather is about connecting with one's surroundings, whether neighborhood, community, or maybe a place more distant for school or work or whatever the case, and realizing that, oh, that thing that I should be fixed. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be a physical thing. It could be tools for commuters on our public transit system. It could be tools for dealing with obstructions, that if people are not 100% bipedal ambulatory, maybe I've got a picture of it somewhere. Someone moved a giant street sign, like a construction sign, so it was on an X frame, so the X-shaped feet on the ground, the legs and the whatever, and then the vertical sign mounted on springs for wind, right? So it would not blow around. Somebody just picked that up and moved it onto a sidewalk so that it completely blocked the sidewalk. Well, if you are wheelchair bound or have difficulty moving in general, or maybe if you are vision impaired and you weren't expecting to have a completely obstructed sidewalk in front of you, well, these are the things that getting people to fix them, to do, hey, Public Works, can you come out and move this sign to the correct place? People don't know what to do or where to go with that, and it's possibly an urgent matter. There is the C-Click Fix platform, third party, of course, that Clark County and City of Las Vegas have subscribed to. When will somebody fix this problem, right? You can call Public Works, maybe. Is that the right phone number to call? Who knows? So this is modernity that we're living in now. It's the present. We have all of the technology we could ever need to make some of these problems or gaps in service or quality of life issues, right? Hey, I can't get to the store. I can't roll my wheelchair. What am I supposed to do here? And we'll send somebody out there in a week. Okay, great. We are in the past, not the future. So basically, we could look at these as a permission structure. We are granting anyone with an idea the space to explore that idea and the possibility of implementing it. So I didn't know I could do this, for example. Well, you can. Not to say that nobody's using LinkedIn. It's like the most popular social media platform, maybe pretending to still be a social networking platform, but it has become something less useful than it once was, which is not helped by the lack of interest expressed through silence by local media, local content creators, those silo groups, and anyone who is only paying attention for the sake of their own interests, which I suspect, well, the algorithm on LinkedIn is very, very aggressive in what it shows people, whether they like it or not. The question, though, is whether we are reaching Greater Vegas or only the people who are looking for the next thing without knowing what that is. So in other words, the algorithm is deciding, oh, you might be interested in what Innovate for Vegas is posting today. And we don't post nearly enough to satisfy whatever algorithmic parameters are used to determine if something is interesting, etc. If you have listened. Yeah, I don't know who types this stuff. If you've listened to more than 2 episodes of this program, you know what my view is on what LinkedIn has evolved into. We've already had more than 1 episode about MyMuni and Welcome. These are 2 initiatives that we have that go together. MyMuni is for people who live or work. Maybe are part-time residents, but they are considered locals of some stature here in Greater Vegas. And Welcome is our completely overwhelming by ratio visitor population. 2.4 million people in Clark County, give or take, and 38 million people visited the Greater Vegas area in 2025. 38 million and change. Down from 42 million in 2024. So Welcome is sort of the other side of the coin of information sharing for people who are not already living here, but who visit here, maybe frequently. We talked about MuniBits, which is the sort of implementation of these 2 initiatives as a kind of combined coherent platform, and about the reasons for these, that information sharing today is a matter of presenting the journalistic inverted pyramid, not on paper, but on a screen. We have maps and charts and timelines and semantic web data to connect different parts of a story to relevant parts of other stories by something other than a keyword or a name. Just like it says in the name of our foundation, the idea is to innovate for this place, to make it better, to invite others to participate. Civic innovation is one of those pursuits anyone should feel enabled and encouraged to try. And this is, of course, especially true in a global innovation hub, which the Greater Vegas area purports to be. Unfortunately, and I'm being frank here, this is not the case in Greater Vegas. There's a lot of assumptions or inability, lack of savvy, perhaps. I don't know. As I mentioned, I was in Silicon Valley for a long time. That is where some innovation takes place. And Silicon Valley has only been around for, what, 100, I'll call it 200 years. In one, not Silicon Valley, Silicon, but the place and the culture and the evolution of the culture and the emergence of a culture of innovation, among other aspects of the Silicon Valley area. So they've been at it for a while. We have a long way to go. Something needs to change. So the path forward has 2 lanes. So I've mentioned the City Camp and the Smartest Smart City Challenge. We have our cohort initiatives, so you would be more of a member of the cohort, so presumably ongoing participation in our open transit initiative, our Challengers initiative to recognize and celebrate students and others who contribute their time, effort, and expertise to challenges. So not our projects, usually the projects and challenges of others. Smartest Smart City Challenge, or U.S. Congressional Apps Challenge, or so many others. So you can either work kind of as an ongoing participant, or you can take part in these more community outreach events to enable and encourage civic innovation on the part of what we'll say are normal people who have been seeing that one thing that somebody should fix that, to turn that into, wait, I could fix that. And by the way, this is a subtlety, but when you invite more people to exercise their ideas and turn them into action, some of those people might find that they are excited by the idea of continuing that effort, and who knows if we'll get startups out of it and so on. So yeah, who knows? You don't know if you don't try. So we're not reaching out anymore. We aren't recruiting, as I mentioned, but we are also not reaching out anymore. As an all-volunteer organization, management of time, effort, and expertise, how they are budgeted, and where not to assign them is important in general and critical for those of us who want to move this forward. Time spent on those efforts, not reaching out to people who don't respond, reaching out to educators, members of the press, members of the city and county staff. These have been fruitless and, if we're being honest, and we always are, a collective waste of time and effort. So, lesson learned. We would like to connect with Greater Vegas, though, and not using the usual tools. Let's not get started with Twitter and Blue Sky and Instagram and whatnot. These are LinkedIn, but worse. And people are already using these tools for their political opinions, and which they're, go for it. Local content creators in Vegas are focused like 99.9% on tourism. So it's always tourist focused. Why not? Your population, your total addressable market is substantially larger than the population of Vegas. Why spend time looking at innovation around sidewalk obstruction reporting when you can talk about the latest swimming pool or the best barbecue restaurants, etc.? And there is a place for those, obviously, but we cannot even count on local content creators to give a second look to the things we're working on. And since this always bears repeating, we cannot count on higher profile gatekeepers to help. This is a topic for a longer chat, perhaps, but some entities believe they are being asked to help a group they do not support or know or understand, whatever the case, but they are leaving the rest of the population out of the potential conversation. So when we contact the press, for example, and say, hey, would you like to report on this? And they say, no. They are deciding based on ignorance, let's be honest, because there are no questions asked. It's really just, you're not building or destroying something, then we're not interested. This is just the way it is, and it's unfortunate. So open transit, challengers, talks, my Muni and Welcome combined into Munibits. There's more stuff. So one lane is for our foundation along this path. The path has 2 lanes. So one lane is for our foundation. Participants, our cohort of civic volunteers, our initiatives, the labs plan, which we've gone over a couple of times now in this episode and in previous episodes several times. So one lane is really about sort of committed participation, whatever committed means. And we have long-term initiative plans. They kind of fit together. We did an episode last week about architecting, like putting this stuff together in a sensible way so people don't feel like they're wasting their time. Not everything is code, so we do account also for other types of contribution. If people think, oh, everything is code, well, you don't want to live in that world. Let me promise you that. There's still humans around for the time being anyway. So people can participate in sort of an ongoing effort in a cohort of civic volunteers. Or the other lane is for all of Greater Vegas to realize that anyone really can elevate their neighborhoods and communities by way of civic innovation and can actually be they can actually be an active part of the culture of innovation of all of Greater Vegas. You can participate in a hackathon or a Smarter Smart City Challenge or a city camp in September, and you can say, perhaps, I didn't really have a sense of the culture of innovation of the Greater Vegas area, not in so many words, perhaps. So exposure and realization and that aha moment you get when you say, oh, I didn't know I could do this. And why was I not doing this sooner? And hey, let's do another hackathon, right? That's always a test of something. Was this a good event? Do they want to do it again? So one lane for our foundation cohort, our activities, another lane for everyone who wants to participate in the culture of innovation emergence as we attempt to cultivate it for our part. And maybe people want to be an active part of the culture of innovation in the one lane, or maybe since the path leads to the same place, which is ultimately that culture of innovation and activity and energy and all this nice, good stuff, eventually will become Eureka from that sci-fi show, Eureka. Something like that. The path leads to the same place so far. And who knows, some might want to change lanes. Maybe I want to work on open transit. Maybe I want to work on My Muni or Welcome. Maybe I'd like to help make sidewalks easier to navigate for people who are not as mobile as I am, et cetera, et cetera. So there's more opportunity that can be described in a podcast or on a YouTube video or whatever. And it really starts with individuals who can look around and say, you know what? And it goes from there. So we'll see if we can get people to participate or even know about City Camp. And to that end, we really need to foster these connections beyond dependence on the gatekeepers, the local press, and so on, and platforms that are algorithmically challenging. You'd much rather talk about the latest of whatever drama than making your community better? Meh. Who cares about that, right? Being stuck with these platforms as tools of engagement is a problem. And there are some other things I mentioned here today, but generally speaking, Vegas is a place that keeps to itself unless proven otherwise valuable, worthwhile, etc. Show me what you got, etc. I've talked about these things in previous episodes too. So we continue to have our work cut out for us, and we can spend time on recruiting and trying to pitch people on participation, or we can build some of the things that will help us do that outreach by offering information sharing as a platform that would actually work without gatekeepers. And we can go from there. Where do you go to find out what the latest startups are in your city or county? Good luck with that. Okay, I'm going to leave it here. I could go on and on. I have 178 episodes. So consider participating in City Camp. We're going to have sign-ups on the Challengers platform when we get that going. Man, my voice is killing me. The opposite today, just super dry. Thanks for putting up with my dry voice. And again, consider participating in civic innovation for your own neighborhoods, communities, and the people you know and run into daily. Take care now. Thanks for listening. Thanks for your support. Thanks for your participation eventually. And we'll leave it there. Take care. Bye-bye.